Hello friends, in today's episode, we're gonna talk about, is there an Airbnb for long-term rentals? Now, unless you've been living under a rock, you've probably heard about Airbnb and how it services the short-term rental market. But is there a service like Airbnb for long-term rentals? Well, by the end of this video, you'll not only understand how Airbnb works for long-term rentals and what other potential sites exist out there for that market, but also how they compare to traditional leasing methods. So what does Airbnb or other sites like that offer for individuals that are looking for something more than just a short-term getaway? And how does it ensure that both guests and hosts are equipped for stays that last longer than weeks or maybe even months? Well, let's uncover the structure and advantages of sites like Airbnb for long-term rentals by first diving into Airbnb's strategy and how it's evolved. Secondly, we're going to identify the avatar that is looking for a longer-term stay utilizing sites like Airbnb. And finally, I want to go over alternative websites that promote long-term stays like Airbnb does for short-term rentals. If you're ready, let's jump in and get after it. So Airbnb launched in 2007 with the overall goal of connecting homeowners to guests that were looking for places to stay and travel and experience that area like a local. Rather than being cramped up in a hotel room with an entire family, a place where they could spread out and really enjoy themselves and be in a home type setting, just like they are in the home that they live in, but something out in an area that they truly wanted to visit and get to know. And I don't know if you've heard, but just recently, Salt Lake City got the bid for the 2034 Winter Olympics, and they actually received that bid back in 2002. And I was living in the area and I had a condo, and I remember thinking to myself, what if I could just rent this out for a few weeks for those wealthy people coming from Europe that were wanting to stay and watch family or friends or their country? I thought, man, I would love to do that, but I had no option to do that other than maybe just trying to connect friends. My wife quickly shut that down, but overall, I had the idea that if I could rent that out for a short period of time, I could make a significant amount of money, which is what Airbnb absolutely has capitalized on since its inception in 2007. Now, I'm not saying that Airbnb stole my idea, but I love the idea and I still love it today, and it's something that I participate in a regular basis with the short-term rentals that I own. And since Airbnb has done that, they've connected these homeowners and guests on one simple app, giving homeowners the ability to make money on their homes or second homes, and providing guests that unique opportunity to stay in awesome places, whether it's a treehouse, whether it's a tiny home, whether it's a grain bin converted into a home, or many other things that people have been very creative on turning into short-term rentals. And if you've booked any travel in the last little bit, chances are you've utilized Airbnb. My family and I just went on a trip this summer around the northeast part of the United States, and we were looking at Airbnbs to stay at rather than hotels because we wanted that same type of experience that most people do when they travel outside of their home city or home state. Now, Airbnb has traditionally been just that, what I explained, what I've taken advantage of in the short-term rentals that I own or that I've utilized as a traveler with my family. And Airbnb has completely filled that void of those stays between one night, maybe to 28 nights. But when COVID happened about 4 years ago, there were people that wanted a place to stay for longer than 28 days. And I think that's when Airbnb has really ramped that up. Now, don't get me wrong, Airbnb has offered longer term stays since its inception, but I don't think that most people took advantage of that or knew about it until COVID, when they knew people or heard of people that were staying places maybe for 2, 3, or 4 months just to get out of the cities and go to a more rural area. So Airbnb has looked to fill that gap of people who are staying nightly stays up to 28 days, whereas long-term rentals, as we know, are people that are typically staying in a place longer than 12 months. So we know Airbnb is the market leader in short-term rentals, and we've identified that Airbnb does do stays beyond 28 days and less than 12 months, but it's not typically what they're known for. One of the reasons behind that is because some of the traditional methods of finding a place to stay over a long period of time are tried and true, and they work really well and still work really well to this day. And some of those processes are things like contacting a property management company, looking on social media sites, Facebook specific groups for places to stay, personal contacts. However, that doesn't mean that disruption for this part of the industry is not ripe and ready to be disrupted. Because just like Airbnb came onto the scene with massive force in 2007 and beyond for short-term stays, it doesn't mean there's not an opportunity for a group to come out there and really disrupt it for people wanting to stay 2, 3, 4 months, whether you're working remotely, a digital nomad, or you just want to travel very frequently and stay a couple months in different places at a time. Now, there does exist midterm rentals, and that's typically where people are staying 1, 2, or 3 months in a certain area. And that's traditionally been associated with workers, professionals, maybe it's traveling nurses, maybe it's traveling executives that are going to a certain area to do training or to be trained for a period of time, and they want the convenience of a home where they can stay, sit down, relax, and even work from rather than staying in a hotel for a long period of time. So midterm rentals definitely service that market and are an absolute great alternative if you fit in that category. But the person, as I mentioned, the digital nomad, the remote worker that wants to stay 28 days longer to 12 months, there is an opportunity for that. And who fits that avatar? Well, one, as I mentioned, is the digital nomad. This is somebody maybe has their own business. They can go and work on their computer wherever they're at. So they could spend a few months in Spain, a few months in the United States, and travel around because the work they're doing only requires a computer or a laptop, and they can sit down and do that from anywhere. Another one that I found was really interesting is a lot of times university professors that are leaving and going on sabbatical. And a lot of times these sabbaticals are anywhere from 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, where they'll go to a certain area to learn or gather more information or even do research. Matter of fact, my neighbor teaches at the university in the city in which I live, and she went on a sabbatical about a year and a half ago and took her 2 kids with them. And they were in Bulgaria, but they traveled to a lot of different cities in Europe after that, and her kids still talk about how amazing that was. But I think about that and say, what is there available for somebody who fits that avatar, who is leaving a university to go stay someplace for maybe 3, 4, 6 months, 9 months at a time in order to grow and gain additional knowledge about the field in which they're educating other people on. So we know that Airbnb is a viable option for those individuals that I just explained that fit that avatar, that are looking for a stay beyond 28 days, but maybe less than 12 months. But what other sites exist out there where if you fit this category, you could absolutely take advantage of these sites? Well, one is furnishedfinder.com. And that is a site that is almost exclusively catered towards midterm rentals. They come furnished, they come with everything you need. It's about ease and convenience, where if you're a remote worker that needs to be in an area for a 2-month period of time because your job or your employment requires that, like a traveling nurse or a traveling executive or a trainer, whatever it might be, Furnished Finder fits that bill and provides that solution for that type of person. Another one is, I did this research that I found out that fit number 2 avatar is sabbaticalhomes.com. And they are exactly what they sound like. They're a place for these university professors to go and find housing for the period that they're out there doing their sabbatical. And Sabbatical Homes is the leading international directory for academic home rentals, as well as home exchanges, house sitting, and home sharing opportunities. And most of the homes on this site come furnished and are really convenient for those individuals that fit that avatar. Now, another viable option is Facebook Marketplace and regional and rental-oriented Facebook groups. It seems like Facebook is creating these different groups that are very niche specific for individuals that are looking to do whatever it might be, and finding places to stay that are beyond 28 days and 12 months. There are groups out there that are available to find potential options for you if you fit that bill. And finally, one that's come on the scene fairly recently is a website called spotahome.com. It is a leader in the mid to longer term stays, and they have a dominant presence in Europe. So there are a handful of sites out there, as I mentioned, but when you think of short-term rentals, there's a ton of sites. So is that market ripe for disruption? I believe it is. But this is the research I've done. I'd love to hear your feedback. Please comment below. Let's engage in a conversation. And just for stopping by and watching this video, I've got a free gift for you. It's 100% free, no obligation. Just click on the link below, aaronsfreetraining.com. It is a short-term rental calculator that you put in the purchase price, all the expenses, the income from a home, from a short-term rental, and it spits out to you whether it's a good deal or not, and it's 100% free. And once again, thanks for stopping by. Have an amazing day.